Outside Fian village, a group of strong villagers, led by Zuzong, walked towards the distant mountains. Lin Xun was also in the team. He had promised to help Zuzong remove the pests in the spiritual field of his home when he returned from hunting, but the only condition was that Zuzong also take him to the hunt. Zuzong naturally agreed happily. Zuzong's wife had a cold a while ago and just recovered, but her body has become very weak and needs to be replenished urgently. Therefore, the main purpose of Zuzong's trip to the mountain this time was to pick up some medicines to replenish chi and blood, and hunting was second. As an experienced hunter in Fian village, Zuzong is very aware of the dangers in the mountains, so even if he went into the mountains to collect herbs, he called some strong people in the village to follow him to ensure safety. As for Lin Xun, who insisted on getting involved, Zuzong was not worried. He also heard about Lin Xun's defeat of Lu Ting yesterday. When it comes to combat power, Lin Xun is much stronger than these villagers. The group set off, even with Zuzong leading the way. It took more than an hour to reach the foot of a group of mountains. Looking around, I saw that this piece of mountains stood in the sky, high into the clouds, and was shrouded in thick clouds from halfway up the mountain. Indistinctly, you can also hear the sound of beast roars coming from the deep mountains, which is quite infiltrating. Everyone, be careful. This deep mountain and old forest is very dangerous. Not only are the beasts, but there are also many miasmas and poisonous insects raging. Everyone follow me closely, don't run around. In front of the vast forest at the foot of the mountain, Zuzong took off his longbow, held it in his hand, and glanced around alertly. The other villagers also took out their weapons and their expressions became solemn. They are just ordinary people. Although his body is strong and his body is strong, he is not a cultivator after all, and no one dares to be careless in the face of such a deep mountain and old forest. Lin Xun thought for a while, and held the blue short blade on his body in his hand. The group was ready, and immediately entered the vast forest, and soon disappeared. This forest is huge, with towering ancient trees and luxuriant branches and leaves, covering the sky, and the air is damp and dark. Some vines even have the thickness of buckets, hanging like pythons all over the forest, with fallen leaves piled up on the ground, and strange and coquettish flowers and plants, obviously all highly poisonous. Zuzong and his party were nervous and moved forward cautiously. No one dared to speak again, for fear of attracting an attack by poisonous insects and beasts. Lin Xun seemed very relaxed, and he still had time to observe the scenery he saw along the way, and occasionally squatted down to pick some flowers and plants. Purple yingwa, bixing cow, three-leaf silver vine, red-tailed bitterroot. I didn't expect that there are so many spiritual materials hidden in this deep mountain and old forest. Lin Xun was a little overjoyed. As a spiritual pattern apprentice, Lin Xun has been dealing with various spiritual materials since he was a child, and he can naturally see which are good things and which are useless at a glance. With this kind of experience and eyesight, he has seen a lot of spiritual materials along the way, most of which can be used as medicine, and can also be used as materials for smelting spiritual ink. Of course, you can also take it out and sell it for money. For Lin Xun, this was a pleasant surprise, but unfortunately in Fian village, even if there is spiritual material, it is difficult to exchange for money, let alone fill his stomach. Lin Xun carried an animal skin bag with him, which was about the height of a person, but he didn't worry about the lack of a place to put spiritual materials. Brother Lin Xun, what are you picking these things for? Seeing Lin Xun picking some flowers and plants from time to time along the way, Zuzong finally couldn't hold back and asked in a low voice. Not only Zuzong, but other villagers were also quite curious. Lin Xun didn't hide it. He explained the value of these spiritual materials one by one. How could the villagers understand this? They were all confused. However, when they heard that these things could be sold for money, their eyes lit up, and they all asked Lin Xun for guidance. Lin Xun readily agreed, so along the way, These villagers began to search on the way forward under Ling Xun's guidance. Many people are powerful, this is really no joke. In just a stick of incense, the animal skin cloth bag on Ling Xun's body was stuffed. From this, it can be seen that in this vast forest, which is almost inaccessible, danger is dangerous, but it is also a good place to hide all kinds of spiritual materials. Of course, if it wasn't for Ling Xun's follow this time, it would be impossible for these villagers to know that these things they regarded as flowers and plants could still sell for money. Just as everyone was in high spirits walking all the way, Ling Xun suddenly stopped and waved to signal everyone to stop. Under the doubtful gazes of Zuzong and others, Ling Xun suddenly grabbed the bow and arrow in Zuzong's hand, and climbed up an ancient tree next to him vigorously. Seeing this, those villagers still don't understand. There must be a beast approaching. All of a sudden, their nerves were also tense, and they were ready to fight. Roar tilde. In just a few breaths, a beast roar resounded from a distance like a thunderous roar, which was deafening, and shocked the birds in the forest. No, it's a snow-spotted leopard. Zuzong's expression changed. With his many years of hunting experience, he could tell just by his voice that the attack was a snow-spotted leopard. The body of this beast is as big as an ox, its entire body is snow-white, dotted with many black spots, and its temperament is fierce and deceitful. Back then, Lian Rufing, the leader of the guards in the village, was attacked by a snow-spotted leopard. At that time, Lian Rufing already possessed the inner strength level of cultivation, but even so, he almost died in the mouth of the snow-spotted leopard. You can see how powerful this monster is. Sure enough, when they heard the name snow-spotted leopard, the expressions of the other villagers suddenly changed, and they clenched their weapons tightly, and became extremely nervous. They never thought that the peaceful atmosphere along the way would be broken by a snow-spotted leopard. This situation is too dangerous. Swish. It was too late and it was too fast. Everyone only felt a flower in front of them. A snow-white figure passed through the woods and rushed towards Zuzong, who was headed by lightning. That's too fast. Even if Zuzong had been prepared, his reaction was a bit slow. The long knife in his hand had just been raised halfway, and a large mouth of blood had been swallowed up in the air. Seeing that Zuzong was about to be robbed, at this moment, the snow-white figure let out a painful roar, and the slaughtering action suddenly stagnated, and immediately fell to the ground. Only then did everyone see clearly that this was indeed a snow-spotted leopard, but at the moment, an arrow was inserted into its hind legs, and blood was flowing. Obviously, it was this arrow that saved Zuzong's life. Roar. However, before everyone was shocked, they saw that the snow-spotted leopard roared loudly, and his fierceness was unabated, jumped up, and charged again. The fishy smell coming from the face, like a signal of death, made Zuzong and others stunned, and they hurriedly retreated. Swish. Almost at the same time, a cyan blade descended from the sky, as if it was slashing Huashan, and slashed at the neck of the snow-spotted leopard with a precise angle. Puff! A cloud of blood splashed 3 feet high, and immediately saw the snow-spotted leopard's head thrown into the air. The entire body lost control, and crashed to the ground. Just die? Zuzong and the others were swayed, a little unbelievable. This is a snow-spotted leopard. Even Lian Rufing, who had a strong level of cultivation back then, almost died. But now he was beheaded on the spot with 1 arrow and 1 knife! At this time, Ling Xun came to the corpse of the snow-spotted leopard with a short blue-green blade, and waved the tip of the knife into the heart of the snow-spotted leopard. Immediately, a stream of blood gurgled out. At the same time, Ling Xun took out another one. The skin bag filled the blood into it. The snow-spotted leopard is no longer an ordinary beast, but a fierce beast. Its heart and blood are filled with extremely abundant power. Whether it is used medicinally or swallowed, it has no small magical effect. Ling Xun finally stopped with the blood of a skin bag full of blood. He turned his head and said, "Everyone, the blood of this snow-spotted leopard is a good thing. Don't waste it." Zuzong and the others just woke up like a dream, and they stepped forward one after another, took out their portable water bags and acted. Brother Lingzun, it's amazing. This is an adult snow-spotted leopard. The skin of this leopard can be exchanged for 10 copper coins if you take it to the Qinyang tribe, and the meat of this snow-spotted leopard is also very popular. Zuzong exclaimed. The others also nodded, and looked at Lingzun with a touch of admiration in their eyes. A 13-year-old boy could kill an adult snow-spotted leopard by himself, which they dared not imagine. Lingzun smiled and said, "Let's hurry up and take away the valuable things of this snow-spotted leopard. The blood here is too bloody, and I'm afraid it won't be long before it will attract other beasts to watch." Zuzong and others also understood this, and without any hesitation, they dissected the skin, flesh, bones, and tendons of the snow-spotted leopard one by one, and then used a huge leaf called Langsing wrapped these things up and put them in an animal skin bag. The odor of the barnacle grass is pungent, and it can suppress the bloody aura. In this way, it can avoid being followed by other ominous creatures smelling the bloody smell. Not long after, Lingzun and his party moved forward again. After the attack just now, Zuzong and the others became cautious, and they stopped picking spiritual materials and began to concentrate on moving forward. Lingzun is the same as before, but his eyes have become critical, and he is too lazy to pick some spiritual materials that are of little value. The most important thing is that the animal skin bags carried by their group are limited, and they can't hold too many spiritual materials at all, and they can only discard a part of the spiritual materials that are of little use. After walking in silence for a long time, Zuzong suddenly frowned and said in a low voice, "Something is wrong." Usually when you enter this forest, you will encounter 7 or 8 beast attacks, but this time, in addition to encountering a snow-spotted leopard, I didn't touch anything. It's really a ghost. The other villagers also nodded, and the situation did seem a little unusual. At this time, Lingzun seemed to have found something, and stepped forward, pausing behind a big tree dozens of feet away. Soon, Lingzun's voice came, "You come here, it seems that other people have been here before us." Zuzong and the others rushed over, and immediately saw that on the ground behind the big tree, there was a lizard-like corpse of a vicious beast covered with dark green scales.